Thank you so much to our UWC choir. Good morning, comrades, colleagues, and distinguished guests. My name is Thandigamedze Awetu, and I'm a senior researcher in the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice. On behalf of the center, I am very honored to welcome you to this critical dialogue on apartheid, Zionism, and the socially conscious university with our very special and honored guest who needs no introduction, the UN Special Rapporteur on the Occupied Palestinian Territories, Ms. Francesca Albanese. It's such a joy and privilege to have you here, as has been reflected over the past number of days of you being with us in South Africa. You have been an anchor, a compass, a breath of fresh air, and a beacon of light and hope in these very dark times. Your work has not only inspired all of us, but has opened up space and made us aware of space that is already there for us to fight for justice and demand accountability in the different spaces that we find ourselves. On this note, I really want to acknowledge all the work that has gone into ensuring that this university largely has its hands clean of Israeli genocide, settler colonialism, occupation, and apartheid. This has happened in many ways through the long and steady work of the International Office, ensuring that our international relationships comply with the 2004 ICJ determined obligations to end serious violations of international law in the occupied Palestinian territories. Shout out to Prof. Umesh Bauer and team. It has also happened through the long, hard, and committed work to advocate for a groundbreaking institution-wide BDS stance, through the committed work and activism to make sure that a liberated Palestine is kept on the agenda in all university decisions, the continued and deep work of education and advocacy through reading groups, film screenings, performances, vigils, bake sales, and more. So for all of this, a very special shout out to the student organization Palestine Solidarity Alliance, the university-wide organization UWC-PSC, Palestine Solidarity Coalition, and to allies in strategic spaces across the institution. This has been the work of refusing to concede the political space that we have, the work of cracking open new political space where it has not yet existed, and the work of widening the space that we already have. Thank you all. I also want to give a shout out and our deep gratitude to the Nelson Mandela Foundation, co-conveners of this event, and the ones who made this possible. Thank you. And also to the Rector's office here at the University of the Western Cape, who is hosting us today. To help us situate this conversation within the vision and legacy of this university, it is my pleasure to invite our Rector and Vice Chancellor, Professor Robert Balfour, to welcome us. We are deeply grateful for you too in these times, Prof. Balfour, for the space that you continue to open up to revisit, reawaken, and reclaim our rightful identity and legacy as the intellectual home of the left, and all that this means in terms of our accountability to struggles for social justice everywhere. Thank you, Prof. Balfour.
Good morning, colleagues, students, and distinguished guests. In meeting Francesca this morning, the first question she asked me was about my surname. But there was not time enough, I have to say, in order to explain the many no links between that Balfour and this Balfour. But it's such a pleasure to welcome you here this morning, Francesca. And your visit comes at a time when we've hosted several wonderful conversations that speak directly to the dialogue today. At the colloquium on Palestinian and Southern liberatory studies, and together with Professors Nadira Shaloub-Kevorkian and Prof. Hassan Abu Sita, we explored just last week, I think it was, how education can serve freedom rather than power. And it was Nadira at that meeting who asked the question about how a society that has been mangled by genocide reconstructs itself. And she made the point about the experience of genocidal destruction and how it compels a rethinking of how societies reconstitute themselves without, in so doing, creating the very conditions that may foster a resort to violence as a form of solution making. We also considered in that forum and others how solidarity across geographies, histories, can become a moral practice of scholarship. We acknowledge that universities are not neutral spaces, they are indeed moral communities, and they are influenced by what we choose to see or not to see, and what we choose to name and not to name as injustice. In South Africa, we know the pain and the dispossession that comes from power and resistance. That experience connects us to others who still struggle for freedom and dignity on our continent and across the globe. The American abolitionist Frederick Douglass wrote, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." His words, spoken in the fight against slavery in the 1850s, confirm that freedom is never a given. It is claimed through courage and persistence. Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish argued that hope, even when born in exile, remains an act of defiance. His poetry gave voice to displacement while insisting on dignity and belonging. Taken together, those words about the struggle for freedom and the struggle against violence and oppression are one message. In this spirit, we welcome you, Francesca, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on occupied Palestinian territories. We are honored by your presence at UWC. Thank you also to our very gracious Program Director, Dr. Thandi Gamedze. Also, thank you to Dr. Mbongisine Buthelezi of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Thank you to Professor Rajani Nadar of the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice, and to our participants today, Mr. Macintosh Kasembe, our SRC President, Ms. Hajar Matia, Reverend Professor Alan Busak, and Reverend Wilma Jacobson, representing our Chancellor, the Archbishop Thabo Makgoba. UWC acknowledges that knowledge must come with conscience. It means asking difficult questions and naming injustice even when it is inconvenient and difficult to do so. It means standing, as our founders did, for the belief that knowledge must serve people and not privilege. When we speak about Palestine, we do so from an ethical tradition anchored in South Africa's own history of solidarity, solidarity among the oppressed, which is geared towards, at a university, the pedagogies of freedom. Last year, our Senate and Council took a decision to support that commitment in recognizing that silence is never neutral. To know is to take responsibility for what we know and to act towards justice. UWC was, of course, established in struggle and influenced by conscience. Our intellectual traditions emerged in resistance to apartheid and to the attempts to control who could learn and what could be known. That history reminds us that scholarship carries a moral consequence. To be that place where the questions about what it means to be an intellectual home for the left is to see that freedom is a work that is continued over generations. It is not an ideological continuity in changed conditions where the oppressions tag on to the legacies of old hegemonies, but an ethical refusal of the conditions which produce oppression, whether in the intimacy of the home, the activities of labor, or the politics of capital. In our case, and in the end, we must ask ourselves as scholars and citizens, what it means to make sure that learning is never detached from humanity. Bell Hooks reminds us that the classroom remains a most radical space of possibility, that truth extends beyond classrooms to dialogues such as this one this morning, where thought becomes action and solidarity can take shape together. Each conversation we have as this university is part of the listening about chances to reimagine a more humane world, and in the wreck of genocide, the courage needed to imagine what society and education would need to enact, to reject violence emphatically as a tool and means of creation. I want to thank you, Francesca, and all our colleagues and partners who are here today, reminding us that justice is lived, justice is learned, and it is sustained through care. Our calling as a university is to keep knowledge connected to responsibility and the disciplines that we have among us open to transformation and change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Balfour, for your words and your leadership in this moment. It's now my privilege to invite Dr. Mbongiseni Buthelezi, Chief Executive of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, to offer a few opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Thandi, and allow me to thank Professor Balfour for those warm, brave, but necessary words in this moment. You didn't come here to hear me, so I'm going to keep this very brief. I just wanted to say what an honor and a privilege for us to conclude Francesca's visit at the University of the Western Cape. The Nelson Mandela Foundation, as you all know, Francesca's visit was primarily to deliver the 23rd Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture in South Africa, and to then engage in these related dialogues. The platform, the Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture, was established by Madiba himself 23 years ago, and he hosted the first 7 of those. It was really meant to be a space for deep reflection and provocation. It's meant to be a space for us to not just talk, but also to galvanize us into action. And this year, Francesca has provoked us, has made us think deeply, has challenged us, has made us challenge one another and ourselves. And what a gift it has been. So thank you, Francesca. And I also want to thank Francesca's team, Amal and Teresa, who've been absolutely wonderful to work with in the time they've been here in South Africa. Let me then also end off by thanking 2 other people in the room. Sarojini, of course, and Christy van der Westhuizen, who is one of the trustees of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. They pestered us. They really did, about getting Francesca to this campus. Even though the program was quite tight, I'm pleased to say that it finally happened. And thank you, Sarojini, for your persistence. So thank you, all of you, for being here. We are very honored to be at this university. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Buthelezi, for your work in continuing that legacy. And to what you said at UCT the other night, to making good trouble. We now turn to a moment of remembrance before we get into the dialogue. And I invite the esteemed UWC choir who will come and sing Senzeni Na. Just to say, Francesca, you may already be familiar with this song, but in case not, the words translate from isiXhosa and isiZulu to "What have we done?" and it emerged as a song of protest and lament during South Africa's liberation struggle and has been carried forward into various struggles of different kinds, including that for a free Palestine. I also invite Reverend Professor Alan Busak, no introduction needed, but theologian, struggle activist, and most recently the recipient of an honorary doctorate from UWC, who will come up during the song to light a candle in memory of the Palestinian martyrs that we have lost in the last 2 years of genocide. In this, we remember not only those who have died, but also those who continue to resist, to dream and to hope towards a free Palestine and a world liberated from all forms of settler colonialism, imperialism, and oppression. Please feel free to come up.
We light this candle for the martyrs of Palestine, for those whose lives were taken in the struggle for dignity and the right to simply exist. Its flame bears witness to their courage and to the world's failure to protect the sanctity of their lives. This light is a summons to truth, to justice, to unwavering solidarity. It calls to the conscience of every university in this land to follow the example of this university and to break the bonds of collaboration with apartheid in any guise or geography, to walk the hard road of truth even when it costs us discomfort. So may this flame keep alive the hope that refuses to die. And may the souls of all Palestinian martyrs rest in power. And may their light guide us towards the freedom that belongs to all of us. Senzenina.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the words and that beautiful performance. We now come to the dialogue, and this important conversation brings together two thinkers whose intellectual and ethical work challenge us to reimagine what justice requires us today. The discussion will be led by Prof. Sarojini Nada, Director of the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice and holder of the South African Research Chair in Religion and Social Justice. And Sarojini will, of course, be in conversation with our very special guest, Ms. Francesca Albanese, United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories occupied since 1967. Ms. Albanese needs little introduction. Her work in human rights and international law has brought clarity and courage to one of the most silenced and deep injustices of our time. So without further ado, over to you.
Thank you so much. Tandy, can you hear me? Is this on? Yeah? You can hear me. Great. Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
What an absolute privilege it is to be here. I cannot stress enough how humbling it is to be in the presence of this phenomenal woman. Thank you. Thank you so much, Francesca, for being here. But like Mbongiseni said, we almost didn't get here. When Reverend Rene August, who's here with us today, told me that Francesca Albanese was coming to Cape Town, I almost fainted with excitement. But then, of course, I jumped into my next mission after I got myself up off the floor, which was to ask if she could come to UWC. Because really, how could she come to Cape Town and not come to the home of the intellectual left? And certainly, how could she come to Cape Town and not visit the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice? It felt essential, really, to connect the legacies of two of the greatest ancestors in this that this country has given the world, Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu. And so when I heard that the Mandela Foundation already had a very full program, I almost gave up. But let's just say I've known to be a little bit pushy, maybe persistent. So I reached out to our very own Professor Christy van der Westhuizen, who only joined us in July this year. And she kindly helped to make the connection with Dr. Buthelezi. And then came the news that this was still unlikely. He sent an email to say, no can do, sorry, program full. And so I resigned myself to that reality until a few short days ago when Dr. Buthelezi contacted me and said, Francesca herself wants to come to UWC. See, she says so. And I said without hesitation that I will move heaven and earth to make it happen. And I did move heaven and earth, but as it turns out, heaven and earth could only move so far. And because Francesca has already spoken at some of the biggest events, I think, in the country this week, including one with thousands of people at the Mandela lecture, we were asked to make this gathering smaller and more intimate. And I was given this magic number of 40. And so to those joining us on the live stream, our deepest apologies that you couldn't be here in person. And we know, as Tandy said, there are so many people doing tireless work in the Palestine solidarity movement in this country. And we wish that every one of you could be in this room with us today, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. But still, whether in body or spirit, we are here, and I'm really grateful for that. So, Francesca, I want to move on to the discussion. And I must say that everywhere Francesca has been this week, people have affectionately called her a good troublemaker. But I think also because she's with the Desmond Tutu Center today, it's fitting to borrow a phrase from John Allen's biography of Archbishop Tutu, rabble-rouser for peace. People often focus on the peace part, but I think rabble-rouser is the part that really matters, because it speaks to justice, not comfort. So, Francesca, we are delighted to have you with us here today as our very own rabble-rouser for peace. Can we give Francesca a round of applause? So in the past few days, Francesca, since you've been in South Africa, we've heard many important discussions about international law and human rights, and rightly so. Your work has been extraordinary in showing how law names, documents, and confronts the machinery of occupation and apartheid. But I've noticed that there's one crucial dimension often missing from these conversations, and that is religion. And we can talk later about why that is so. I mean, I know it's not exactly easy dinner conversations, but then again, neither is genocide, I would argue. In the case that South Africa so courageously brought to the International Court of Justice, the application didn't only detail the political and legal structures of genocide. It also cited in several parts of that case, and I'm sure you're a lawyer, so you read it, in several instances, the use of biblical texts by Israeli leaders to justify acts of destruction. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for instance, invoked the command calling on soldiers to remember what Amalek has done, he said, and we remember. Now, he didn't complete the reference, but those who are familiar with the text know that it continues with a command to blot out Amalek's memory from the earth, men, women, children, and animals. And that part about blotting out is what is known as herem. It is a law to blot out the Amalekites. And that quite literally is what we are witnessing, an attempt to erase an entire people. So it's not a metaphor. It's theology functioning as political policy, what I call in my recent book a theological necropolitics, drawing on Achille Mbembe's theory of necropolitics. And I'll say a little bit more about that later. So today I want to focus our conversation on exactly that intersection, where religion operates not just as a private belief system, but as a public and political force that sustains, that legitimizes, and that often sanctifies violence. So let me begin by asking you this. As someone who has spent years navigating the complexities of international law, can law, which so often claims objectivity and neutrality, can law ever truly grasp how religion and belief shape ideology, how it shapes policy, and how it shapes power? Huge question to start with.
Yes, indeed, but we'll try to get into this. So thank you, Sarojini, and let me first take a moment to thank you all for being here, for hosting me, and of course I thank the university. I have to say that the number 40, the limit of 40, doesn't come from me. So just to add to the apology to those who are not here. I thought that the number was because it was organized on such a short notice, but I thank you, and indeed I'm grateful to the Nelson Mandela Foundation first and foremost for inviting me to deliver that prestigious lecture, which was also an opportunity for me to learn, to relearn, to unlearn certain things, because we got used, especially in the part of the world I come from, to Nelson Mandela as as a cuddly old man that was so peaceful and joyful. And so we forget the wounds, we forget the struggles. So for me as well, it was very important to come and discover new things, especially as I keep on saying, how much of Nelson Mandela there is in the people I met. He was, in this sense, very truly South African. I have to say that I'm also very emotional to meet someone who's called the Balfour, and can finally bring some non-negative thoughts, non-negative vibes to the association with your family name, Professor. But so, thank you very much. Let's dig into this. Is it really new? Is it really new that religion and theology are used as a tool of erasure? Not really. Not really, and especially when we look at what the Catholic Church has done and how Christianity has been used as a tool of subjugation and oppression and erasure of indigenous knowledge from within Europe first. I mean, yesterday, let me open up parenthesis, he was so telling that for the first time in my term as a special rapporteur, but I can tell you, even when I look back at what Professor Michael Link and Professor Richard Falk have done at the General Assembly, never they have been honored, so to speak, by the presence of the Israeli state. So yesterday, for the first time, the Israeli ambassador came to tell me that I'm a witch. Oh, you missed it. I'm a witch.
We'll burn along with you.
He told me, you're a witch. And then he told me I'm a failed witch because I didn't succeed. Surely, he's right. I didn't succeed to stop the genocide yet, wow, to stop the crimes against humanity and the war crimes. But this is what I said. Also, I mean, supported by my team, because I said, what is he saying? Also, full disclosure, I come from a place in Europe, in southern Italy, which is known for wolves and witches. So it's on the record. I think I've even given an interview talking about that. It's not an offense if you tell me witch.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an insult.
But how telling that, is it me? How telling that in 2025, a man from a settler colonial enterprise is to accuse a woman whose only weapon is knowledge and whose only strength is resilience that she in fact gets from, yes, the people who are being genocided, to be a witch. So that's fine. I think that internet and the young generation and TikTok will help make ambassador, sorry, I forgot his name, the Israeli ambassador regret for yet another stupid thing he said instead of addressing the matter, my findings. So there is a theology of erasure that travels across ignorance, first and foremost. And then, of course, it exploits the weakness of the mind and the misery of the soul, I'm afraid. I don't know how we manage to get there or to remain there or not be able to uplift ourselves from there, but we are still there, where in the name of religion, the life of mothers, fathers, and children is sacrificed. And even in a place like South Africa, where at least there is a certain part of the population who feels enlightened, who has this posture of being the avant-garde, the part of the population that has helped liberate the country from apartheid, which helped start liberating this country from the chains of apartheid and the legacy of settler colonialism. Even there, the posture is to judge the Palestinians. Yeah, but the Palestinians with their religion, which religion? I mean, in the face of this, of 2 years of genocide predicated upon this concept of Amalek, that I I'm hugely indebted to that great legal team that South Africa has put together, because in fact I keep on saying these lawyers should be heard more, because they are phenomenal for all the things that they've studied and they have produced, and it shouldn't stay just with the South African government, because it's going to empower all of us if we share and discuss around it. But it's what they found and what they spotlighted is key. This concept of Amalek, each genocide has some key words. Like it was true for the genocide of the Tutsi in Rwanda, cut the tall trees, or it was true for the in the genocide of the Bosniak in former Yugoslavia. Amalek is this switch that has operated across the Israeli society. But is it new? No, of course. The fertilizer had been the dehumanization rhetoric that had been used, the inflammatory rhetoric that had been used against the Palestinians for decades. If we go back to 2014, there were ministers on record for saying that the Palestinian mothers in Gaza had to be killed because their breast was a sniper, would nurture the snipers.
Yeah.
This is, and again, how have we been so blind, so deaf, so unaware about what genocide is? Because in the veins of a settler colonial regime, like in a racist society, there is the dormant gene of genocide. Sooner or later, that gene is activated. And there is a history, there are centuries of histories and genocides that speak to that. What does the law have to do with it? The law should be, at least in the way it is taught in Western universities. Cool. In Western universities, it's seen like a synonymous of reason and enlightenment. So it should be an origin. It should be sort of it should set the perimeter of whatever is irrational. And I'm not saying that religion is irrational, but the abuse of religion can be. And so the law should have been the only instrument and the only medium to regulate the relations between individuals. Has it been so? No, because the law itself operates in a system of privilege. And this is the thing. Is it new? No, because throughout centuries of colonialism, the law has been used to maintain structures of injustice and oppression. And what has changed in the law, though, is something that has not been completed in the field of religion. And again, here comes my comment is an observation, not being a theologist myself or a religious expert. But look, your question is the law capable to keep up with the challenges that come from religious beliefs? It depends. It depends on us. It depends on the power forces that confront each other. So far, it doesn't seem that we are, at least looking at the distribution of power, it doesn't seem that we are going very well. Because if you see, there is something incredibly dangerous that has emerged already. You see the US government, the US administration, it's making very clear that they have a religious agenda.
Yes.
And I'm seeing these in my own country. Probably Italy is the most striking of all in Europe, where all of a sudden politicians who have been there for 20 years go around with a cross on their forehead, and I say, where does it coming from? It's to co-opt souls who are starving for leadership, starving for a sense. So the void that has been left by the transformation of religion into something that has little to do with the spirit is being filled in the name of the law or using the law. So right now we are in a very difficult position, because those who do administer the law have forgotten the concept that instead needs to be brought back at the center of both legal discussions and religion, which is justice. And there is, I mean, the image that is often, the symbol, if we look at the symbol that is often associated to justice, is the balance, la bilancia, no? And it's this, this sense of rebalancing what is today, both in Palestine and in the rest of the world, that is missing, and we need to bring back to the discussion, I think.
Great. Thank you. I think you've touched on...
It was a complicated question
that
triggered a very convoluted and all over the place answer.
I think you're touching on an important, several important points here, but I couldn't help but think as you were speaking about the parallels between the law and the academy. We framed today's discussion also around the socially conscious university. And the reason I raised the issue of the parallels between the law and the academy is that both the law and the traditional Western academy claim neutrality as its highest virtue. Right? So we are told again and again that to be credible, to be professional, to be scholarly, we must be detached. We must be neutral. We must be objective. As if distance itself were a mark of scholarly integrity. But Edward Said, the Palestinian scholar, as you know, says in his piece, Representations of the Intellectual, that the intellectual's role is not to be neutral or indifferent, but it is to raise embarrassing questions, to confront orthodoxy and dogma rather than to reproduce them. And in Orientalism as well, he shows how claims to objectivity have long been used to decide whose knowledge counts and whose experience does not, right? So Francesca, I want to ask you this. In your work, I bet you've often been told that as a lawyer, as a UN Special Rapporteur, you must remain neutral, that you must weigh all sides equally, even when the evidence of atrocity is clear. How do you respond to that? How do you defend moral clarity in a world and in a profession that treats detachment as the highest form of credibility? And I want to push that a little bit further and ask, isn't that precisely the same challenge that we face in the universities? Could it be that the reason that so many institutions in this country and globally, academic institutions, and I include some of our neighboring ones here, hesitate to take a stand because they are still beholden to the idea of the Western university, this one that prizes objectivity, detachment, and utility over conscience, over courage, over care. Because Archbishop Desmond Tutu reminded us in that speech in the 80s that if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. It is not neutrality, right? You have chosen a side. So a loaded question again, but about the law and the academy, and if that's where our problems might be.
Yeah, I was trying to see if the assumption resonates with me, that law and universities, academia, are similar, because it's counterintuitive to me in the sense, it's not counterintuitive, but it's not intuitive to me. Because eventually I do see universities as a place, not just physically, but metaphysically, is a place for nurturing, while the law is rather a tool that regulates. What they do have, though, in common is that both serve a function. I can tell you, yes, I've been often told that I should be neutral, and the answer has often been no, sir. No, sir, because generally it's men who tell me what I have to do and what I'm supposed to do and how I should deliver my mandate. No, sir, you're wrong. Neutrality is not part of my code of conduct or my mandate. Objectivity is, impartiality is. So let's unpack it. I am objective in the sense that I have to take into account all the facts brought to my attention without picking or choosing, without disregarding based on my preference or my predisposition one or the others. So I have to look at things by maintaining a distance from the facts, and I have to be impartial. I don't have to, again, project my own political ideas or other beliefs. Fine. But once I've determined what the facts are, as a lawyer, my job is to assess those facts according to the applicable international law, and then make my conclusions on the basis of the legal qualifications that are attributable to those facts. That is my job. And it has nothing to do with neutrality. That is basically not taking a stand in a given context in order not to undermine yourself and not to create further harm to others. But neutrality is primarily a self-serving function that humanitarians claim in situation of emergency. Typical example, I have to bring food and medicines in a situation of conflict, so I'm neutral to the belligerent parties, to the reasons that have brought parties to conflate and conflict, right? So I am protected. You don't shoot at me because I'm neutral. So look at how paradoxical that universities, from the comfort of their farawayness, from a conflict, claim neutrality. What is the risk that are you taking? And no, I don't have to be neutral.
Yeah.
I don't have it. I don't want to be neutral.
Yeah.
But even impartiality, you know, I'm told yesterday, no less than the Italian ambassador to the UN, again, never showed up for 6 times of my report presentations. He came yesterday to amplify the narrative of his friends, the Israeli ambassador, and tell me that I'm not impartial. Maybe it's true that I'm not impartial, but so, ambassador, make yourself a favor and give some example of where I've lacked impartiality. Because instead, what I'm accused of is of not being indifferent, of not being ignorant to the question I'm speaking to. And this is not something that, of course, I feel affected by. I'm totally fine with it. And I use the knowledge I have to challenge the dogma and the orthodoxy. And I would expect nothing less in every discipline, not just the legal ones. But again, international law takes so much blame for its colonial roots. But excuse me, what about medicine? What about anthropology? What about sociology? What about architecture?
Yeah.
So isn't it about the time to be honest, 360 degrees night and day, and question the colonial roots in everything that we inherit, and seeing also what colonialism is? It's inside our mind, because we have barriers that allow us, as we were saying on the very productive chat that we had in the car on the way to here, it allows us to only think in binary terms. And this is why when you have someone who's non-binary in all possible meanings, it means that we crush the orthodoxy, because we break transversally what we are told to think and the limits we are allowed to, within which we are allowed to operate.
Thank you so much. Tandi's indicating to me the time is just
Sorry.
going so fast. No,
I
no,
easily
no.
go into sermon mode.
But I'm really, really glad that you did bring up the non-binary, because that was going to be my. I had lots of questions, but I'm going to make this my last one, because we do want. I know you have a media briefing, and we do want
And
to
a
open
flight
up
to catch.
and a flight to catch. Unfortunately, you're leaving our beautiful land. So I will end my question with this, and then we'll open up for Q&A. So I wanted to turn to the question of intersectionality in our responses to the genocide, because one of the recurring arguments used to justify or sanitize Israeli state violence is that Israel is supposedly a haven for queer people, that it supports gay rights, unlike its so-called backward Arab neighbors. This is what activists and scholars have called pinkwashing, as we know, the cynical use of LGBTQ+ rights to deflect attention from occupation and apartheid. And we've seen the same logic apply elsewhere, of course, in the US bombing of Afghanistan. The West justifies bombing campaigns and military invasions under the banner of what Gayatri Spivak calls saving brown women from brown men. And so the language of gender equality, of sexuality and freedom, and we've seen this with the sexual violence allegations of October 7th, becomes weaponized, right? It becomes a moral alibi for empire, if you like. And so I want to ask, what does an intersectional response to genocide look like? And on Sunday, I remember at the Grote Kerk, you made a powerful observation that the church was filled with portraits of white men. And you said it was, it wasn't just incidental, that there is something to be said about the links between patriarchy and other forms of oppression. So my question is this: if international law and human rights have also been shaped in the image of those same portraits in the church, if they too are built on Eurocentric ideas of whose lives matter, how do we build a response that is truly intersectional?
Let me say something about the pictures
Yes.
first, because I don't want to be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yes, I did notice that the church had those pictures of men.
Yeah.
They should be. I'm not encouraging anyone to remove those pictures, but please accompany them with a
Exactly.
with a description. Otherwise, you keep on celebrating them. Otherwise, why would you keep a picture on the wall if it didn't mean anything to you?
Exactly.
And again, no, it shouldn't be celebration. It should be brought knowledge, so that people who come there should know. I mean, I'm not for the removal of statues, but the statues, I mean, in the US, they have statues for people who should be remembered just for the slave traders they were, or for the so much harm they've done to civil and political liberties in the country. So keep the statue, but write the full story. Don't censor it. This is the first thing that comes to mind. Intersectionality, it's something that has taken at least a decade to me to understand in the context of the Palestinian struggle. And it's a very powerful concept that goes to, I'm glad you asked the question, because it goes into what I was saying. We need to be able to crack this binary thinking by cutting through transversally.
Exactly.
It's not just about, because we have a Cartesian way of thinking that is bidirectional, and instead we need to bring another dimension. And if you read beyond the physical, or I mean, there is a spiritual dimension in it too that has been sort of castrated. But however, going back to the intersectionality, the Palestinians, especially in the US, Steve Salaita, Noura Erekat, have for a long time encouraged people to think transversally and connecting various struggles, like the struggles of Native Americans in the US with the Palestinian struggle, Black Lives Matters, or people who still live in US colonies, or under US embargoes, various communities. And I think this is now, this start of, I mean, in the last 2 years, I've seen more and more of this also coming from the Palestinians under occupation, calling for unity of the people and unity of the struggles. And why is it important? First of all, because all people coming from a place of injustice normally tend to have less means at their disposal to confront the system, to confront those in power. And therefore, it's about really mathematics, putting together, I mean, creating the critical mass that can resist power. So bringing together the BLM movement, the BDS movement, transgender, LGBTQI+, indigenous issues, and the other minorities, create a critical basis to challenge those in power.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that you are thinking of the US, but I'm not just talking of the US. Here's where you laugh. I'm joking. And sense of humor.
Yeah, important, important.
No, but also, I think that there is another element to bring forward here, and why it makes sense to say, how to counter, in the case of Palestine, the pinkwashing, whitewashing, greenwashing that Israel does. There is a lot of thinking behind it, because Israel at a certain point, and it happened about 30 years ago, had to gain the heart and minds of the people to survive, because the more educated, the more knowledgeable, the more democratic societies become, and educated people within societies become, chances are they might not like, and they might stand united against an oppressive apartheid system. So this is why the narrative had to be construed in a way that was favorable to Israel. And there comes the Hasbara and the propaganda. It's 30 years of work that started with greenwashing, pinkwashing, whitewashing, etc., or rainbow washing, but instead concealed a very subtle and sophisticated form of dehumanization of the Palestinians. Uncivilized, brutal, unable to savor the differences and the nuances in life. Is it new? Of course not. It's typical of oppressive regimes. But today, when I hear Palestine is a feminist question,
yes,
I really applaud to this, and not because men are not called in to play a role in this. First of all, it would be nice for once to try to work together on how to put aside the concept of testosteronic alpha male management of power. Wouldn't it be nice for once? But also, it would be appreciated if men applauded to that. So simply
please,
come on. No. To see, yes, I'm not an alpha male. No, but also because, as again we were discussing in the car, there is something. I mean, for you know how beautiful things have been triggered by this accusation of witchcraft coming from the Israeli ambassador. I mean, we have been enduring for centuries these stereotypes, and we have, but not just stereotypes. I mean, we've been lynched, we have been burned, we have been locked into hospitals and psychiatric clinics for using our power, charisma, intelligence. So yes, I mean, we have built in our system a resistance, a resilience that today is leading. And you can see the world is changing. There are many more women, I wouldn't say in position of power, but creating their own power and mobilizing masses, including among the youth. So this is the intersectionality that I see happening.
Great. We could sit here listening to you all day, but you don't have all day. And I want to give an opportunity to other people to ask questions, so I'm going to ask Thandi to manage this part of the...
Thank you so much. I was going to say that, and I'm probably speaking for everyone, that your sermons are among the few that I would be very happy to listen to. So Thank you.
You
So
two cannot do that anymore. I'm looking at my team. I mean, it feels so. They have probably heard this 500 times by now. Love you, ladies.
I am going to skip over the poem. We won't do that because of time. But I think we have time for a few questions and brief comment response. So do we have some hands? Okay.
I think we must take three.
Three questions. Okay. So I see a hand in the front, Prof. Farid. I see a hand in the back, Kelly, and there's, okay, can we do 4? So I see your hand and then Bali in the back. So if you could all just try and keep them as short as possible, and then you can feel free to respond.
Short sermons.
Yeah, very short sermons, TikTok
We
sermons.
must take advantage that
Do we have a mic going around? Okay,
I don't know where it came
great. I said you
Only
first.
you allowed.
Farid. Okay.
Hello, thank you very much for everything, Francesca, but I'll try to be brief. I heard you on 2 occasions speaking about the importance of interfaith dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to challenge you on that. The South African experience and looking at the international scene in relation to that, the South African experience has been very, very different. We consciously avoided interfaith dialogue during the liberation struggle. Many of us saw interfaith dialogue as one of those coffee or tea, these things where you celebrate whatever, but it was part of a butterfly dance of digression. Keep these people busy with talking about interfaith, as if faith was the problem that our people were confronting, and as if it was like, you know, Christians weren't understanding the Jews, the Muslims weren't understanding the Christians. So it had nothing to do with that. In fact, as I was saying, we consciously worked against it. There was an interfaith group in South Africa before we came onto the scene. And Desmond Tutu was the instigator of an alternative to that. And the alternative to that was interreligious solidarity against oppression, but solidarity. We were never interested in each other's dogmas, you know, where the one doesn't come and say, you know, actually Islam is all nice about women, and then the other faith comes, no, actually, you know, Islam is, actually Christianity is nice about, we weren't interested in that. We were interested in, first of all, in getting together and how do we collectively use the resources of our communities and our religiosities to utilize it in the struggle against apartheid.
Thank
so
you.
that was, yeah, the most important thing that I want to point out. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. In the back.
Thanks. We stand as the Palestine Solidarity Coalition at UWC, and want to just thank you so much, Francesca, for your being here. But I hope you don't mind if we use the space of your being here just to make a little bit of good trouble with the university's management with the request. We convened a democratic process to draft 5 boycott resolutions for the university to take to Senate. And we're extremely proud of our university when all 5 of those resolutions passed through democratically with over 70% of the vote. Thanks also to our former rector, Tyrone Pretorius's good space for those boycott resolutions. And I just want to name them very quickly. The first was a full Pack B resolution on academic boycott. The second 2 were towards a full divestment of the university from Israel. And we've had amazing response from the procurement office in particular. In fact, sometimes the procurement office of this university is ahead of us when we go with them. Oh, we've already done that, we've already done that. So we've had amazing response from procurement. Thank you to them. The last 2 are ones that we're particularly concerned about, and this is the good trouble. The 4th resolution was on helping to support and rebuild Palestinian universities. And we felt like we haven't had much substance towards that. And the last resolution is to make good trouble with other universities in our country on this issue. So to lead on the question of Palestine with other universities nationally. And we felt like we haven't had as much movement on that as we need to. So as the Palestine Solidarity Coalition at UWC, we want to ask management with deep respect to actively engage with us on these issues so that we can give the boycott resolutions that our university has democratically taken and voted on real, meaningful depth and substance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, yes. Can we get the mic? Great.
There's a wonderful collection of documents on the anti-apartheid global movement at UWC. And in the Irish anti-apartheid movement, there's a photograph with Seamus Heaney with a placard at the back that says, "You buy oranges and diamonds, they hang their poets." And you know, there's something about that anti-apartheid movement collection that talks to us about what we think of as solidarity today. And in all the ways that Kada Asmal and Louise Asmal have configured that archive for us, it's very interesting, it's Sarojini's point, that the law is the dominant way to think about the problem of apartheid. Yet, I'm wondering whether in the situation in Gaza that we're seeing today, we're not seeing something of a return of apartheid in its uncanny form. And so the question I have is whether we ought to be studying this problem of apartheid more carefully, because it seems that in this country, we haven't grappled and grasped properly what the implications of this pernicious form of governmentality looks like.
Thank you. And last question at the back.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, thank you. So I am going to carry on from PSCs where they were by causing a bit of trouble. And I'd like us as a university to acknowledge and think and sit with three things. Firstly, let us be realistic that being anything against the system has got punishment. And let's be realistic that our current austerity is part of the reason of being troublemakers. It is profitable to stand with oppressors. It has always been. USA is making a very clear, and we understand that. There's profit behind it. So what do we do when we're sitting in the corner as the witches? We are joining you. We are deciding to join you, Francesca, in being witches. We are taking on that position. The mountain, place in the mountain, does not stay the place in the mountain just because it is on the mountain. It is because it abides to the system or some aspects of the system. The place in the winelands remains the place in the winelands because it just abides to the oppression. And black bodies in both places are really uncomfortable and will remain uncomfortable because you have to be disciplined to be a part of the esteem of those places. And that is why maybe we had to approach the Nelson Mandela to say to them, but why aren't you coming to us? You don't get rewarded for being and calling yourself the University of the Left. So I'm sitting here with my colleagues who are here to say, while we are in the naughty corner, let us not wait for management to help rebuild Gaza. Let us sit with each other and say, we're not going to get money because we're not abiding to oppression. We need to go out and find it. We need to find people who are willing to work with us. We need to find clean money. It is there. We can do it. So we need to sit in the naughty corner, but not be good little kids. We need to fight it, and we need to fight with, and maybe against, and maybe call each other in and call each other out while we are sitting in the naughty corner.
Thanks, Marlene. Great. Over to you, Francesca.
Yes. Thank you for your questions. On the interfaith, I stand by what I said, and I will explain what I meant But I also wonder, this is something that, this is not the first time that I have this thought. I'm triggered to think that those who have been part of the anti-apartheid struggle have a very, very specific reading of the situation in Palestine through their own experience, which is legitimate. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that this also becomes an Overton window through which you see things that have been so close to you, I mean, have happened in your own life, but there are different meanings in the situation of Palestine that are both produced by the fact and that it's a different context. It's not the replica. Yes, it is apartheid, but it's different from apartheid South Africa, and especially it's different. Let's say the international dimension of it, not only also the regional dimension. Let's say the geopolitics around it, dramatically different, and also internally there is a different discourse from what was predicated in South Africa. And what I mean is that internally the theology of erasure is much more profound and predicated on religious principles. And today religion is central. Certainly in the last 30 years it has become much more central than it was during the liberation struggle, during the decolonization era that saw Palestine and South Africa so close. Today the religious element is much more prominent in the Israeli discourse of dispossession of the Palestinians. And look at the fact that it also resonates with extreme religiousness or religionism in other parts of the world. So the alliance, there is a revival of something that was the old colonialism where religion was used as a civilizing mission. This is one. The second thing is that I was not looking at interfaith as what, I mean, is the concept of interfaith dialogue. And again, I was not suggesting to bring your interfaith dialogue experience to Palestine. I was suggesting to bring this interfaith dialogue to Europe. Because the anti-Islam sentiment that is spreading across Europe from the UK, Germany, Italy, France, is dramatic, is of the extreme. And this also feeds the machinery that is helping apartheid Israel to survive and thrive. Yeah, this is what I had in mind. I would like to see in the spirit of that intersectionality of struggles and transversality, universities getting united nationwide, but also transnationally. We should have a network of universities against apartheid. I think it's easier if it's done collectively than one by one, because I've been preaching together with others. I mean, I tend to amplify what human rights movement and people standing for human rights do, because this is my way of learning and this is my way of contributing from a human rights perspective and using my positionality. But it's very difficult to push universities to become fully apartheid free. This is why, but don't get discouraged, is a work in progress, and 1 centimeter here, 1 kilometer there. This is how we have advanced all together. Isn't it as well the struggle that humanity is going through to improve from slavery to 2025 South Africa? You see that there have been improvements. But of course, justice is a never accomplished job, and this is why we shouldn't. I wrote something down, and of course I cannot find it now. But it's this perpetual Douglas, what you quoted, Douglas' statement of being progressive in
Frederick Douglass. Yeah.
Yes, the struggles lead to progress.
Yes.
Yeah, but we need to accept the struggle, and it's not always easy or pain-free. The other thing is that rebuilding the universities of Gaza, it's Israel's responsibility. Israel, the US, Germany, Italy, all those who have, I mean, I don't think that this is something that can be taken on by the University of South Africa. Well, where I think I tend to agree with you that you need to get together to protect the space to advocate for the reconstruction, of Gaza. And that space will be increasingly shrunk by the forces that are not interested in creating any space for freedom, that are the same, I mean, the Glencourt dilemma, as I call it. It's the fact that there is a link, a surviving link between the Palestinian struggle and the South African struggle, that is a liberation, both are liberation causes that are not accomplished yet, because unless and until you uproot or you undo and dismantle the real legacy of apartheid, that is not just the formalist one, how apartheid is written in the law, how segregation, petty apartheid or grand apartheid is enshrined in the law, is enshrined in the economic veins of the system. Who accesses the land, who accesses the resources. This is why that report of mine that pointed the finger to this has been so shocking, but also so good to the movement, but so detrimental to my own personal situation, and has led to the sanctions. Why? Why am I a threat to the global economy? Is the knowledge, is the capacity of showing what is the connection and the connector between the various struggles across the various lands. The last point I have is sorry, there is this thing that is very disturbing. I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you that in a way, the genocide in Gaza and the way it has been sustained, it continues to be relentlessly sustained by the Western narrative. But even here in South Africa today, I was asked a question, and in a very nice conversation, which was an amplification of lies, a colonial trope that there have been children raped on October 7. It's not true. And again, this is not to say that crimes against civilians have not been committed, but why the crimes against Israeli civilians that were committed by Palestinian armed groups and Israeli forces who have bombed kibbutzim, who have, in a way to react to the attack they suffered, have been really violent, and why there is no discussion about that, and why these tropes continue to be amplified and say, no, but I heard it. You cannot say that, because it's a lie, and it perpetuates the image of the Palestinians as barbarians, as savages, while the real barbarians are those who have been celebrating, including chanting, burn their village, while 70,000 people have already been ascertained dead. So you see, there is this, this return of apartheid in an uncanny form. Is it a return, or is it an unveiling of the reality? It's something, and I learned from a South African friend, Andre Zaiman, who's been in the, part of the anti-apartheid struggle as well. He often, he reminds us that there is a link between apartheid, racism, and patriarchy. And it's the same, this is what we are discussing. There is a concept of racism that is not even, it has not even to do with race. It has to do with a concept of superiority that has traveled across centuries. Zaraz Segal said, the idea of the superior race was neither born nor defeated with the defeat of, it was not born by the within the Nazi regime. It didn't die with the Nazi regime. It came from before, and it was experienced by the people of this continent and others through the brutal form of slavery and settler colonialism, but had been practiced again on the bodies and soul on so many indigenous communities in Europe. You see, the Sami people, The Sami people are indigenous people of Norway. Reflect upon this. Why they are considered non-white? Why they are non-white? Blonde, blue eyes, small, cute nose. Why? Because they were pagan. They were non-Christian. And they had a structure of the society where the pivotal element was non-binarism. They were dual spirits as the Native Americans or other. They had this other concept. I'm not an expert, but when I learned this, because I said, how come you're not indigenous? It's not that the Norwegian, Swedish, and people from Finland come from other places who have been the colonizers. They were internally marginalized, like other people have been kicked out or they've been persecuted by the Inquisition, 400 years of persecution by the church and the emperors. So that we are still struggling against that. We should see history as a trajectory. And today, the unveiling, the revealing factor, and with this I close the last sermon of the day, is that the Palestinians are acting. I mean, it's a real apocalypse, not just as destruction, but as a revelation of who we are. And this is the moment where young people are understanding colonialism and connecting the colonial struggle, unfinished struggle, with our own miseries. And the patriarchy that travels across apartheid and discrimination and segregation, but also the various forms of discrimination that are practiced against all minorities. Voila, unity of the people, unity of the struggle. Thank you.
Welcome to stay with us. But just to end, we have a brief vote of thanks on behalf of the student community, and then Sarojini will come after to offer another vote of thanks. But without further ado, I invite Macintosh Kasembe, President of the SRC, and Hajar Mati, representing the Palestinian Solidarity Association, to share their reflections and a brief vote of thanks.
Here we go. Good afternoon, colleagues, friends, and everybody here present. My name is Hajira Jamati. I am the chairperson of the Palestinian Solidarity Association here at UWC.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon? It is, right? It is, okay. Thank you so much. My name is Macintosh Kasembe, the president of the Student Representative Council. And I just want to say, Prof. Francesca, I needed that sermon after the exam I wrote. You know, in fact, on the 10th of November, I think I'll be writing a developmental economics exam. And one of the topics that we're studying is the rise of, pro-capitalist nations. I think I'm going to cause trouble when they ask me a question. But either way, good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon, friends and officials of the university. Our task here today is merely just to echo our words of support and a word of gratitude. So that being said, on behalf of the SRC, I want to begin by thanking the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice. I want to thank the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and I want to thank our host institution, the University of the Western Cape, for creating this space. I think let's start there. It's a privilege to belong to a university that still believes in the power of critical and very courageous conversations, especially when we know that in our own province, other institutions have shielded away from that responsibility to act with intellectual courage. I want to also say, with the most sincerest place in me, I want to also honor Professor Tyrone Pretorius, who is here with us today, who in 2024 was in leadership when Senate and Council of the university took the decision to reaffirm its academic boycott of Israel institutions and continue that principled stance within the boycott, divestment, and even sanctions movement. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Professor Robert Balfour, who is our current Vice Chancellor, whose inaugural lecture this year, I think, called on each and every one of us in this university to reignite our identity as the intellectual home of the left. And as the president of the SRC, all I can say, and this is something we use in our political terms, we are led by example and even in scholarly conviction.
And indeed, we are led, McIntosh. So on behalf of the Palestinian Solidarity Association, I also want to echo our gratitude to the Desmond Tutu Center, to the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and then to UWC, of course, for sustaining this vital work. As students at UWC, we often engage with Kimberlé Crenshaw's theory of intersectionality, which teaches us that systems of oppression such as racism, sexism, classism, and colonialism do not act independently, but are interlocking. In our work as PSA UWC, we have learned that intersectionality in theory means solidarity in practice. Where to? It means recognizing that the same forces that sustain apartheid in Palestine also underpin inequalities elsewhere. Solidarity, therefore, to us is not an act of charity, but an act of justice and critical consciousness. Having Ms. Francesca Albanese here with us today has helped us understand that with new depth. Her insistence on truth, even when it is inconvenient, even when it causes trouble, reminds us that intellectual courage is possible. And that spirit captures what this gathering represents to us as students, that scholarship and justice belong together.
And that... She's great, right? I understand. And that brings me to what this event exposes about the wider university landscape. Now, the term PEP, not the retail store in South Africa, I owe that joke to Prof. Nada just to give some credits there, stands for Progressive Accept Palestine. Unfortunately, this describes much of our higher education landscape, both globally and nationally today. We see it among academics and activists who are committed to every other form of justice, whether it's climate justice or gender justice, but somehow fail to be silent on Palestine. This contradiction reminds us that decolonizing the university must also mean decolonizing our solidarities. As Edward Said taught us, the role of the intellectual is to raise difficult questions and confront orthodoxy in public, not to reproduce it. And that is what today's dialogue has demanded of us, the very willingness for intellectuals and scholars to think ethically in public.
And part of that intellectual truth-telling involves religion, as the work of the Tutu Center reminds us. If our faith traditions are used to justify violence or sustain apartheid, whether it be Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, then we have an ethical responsibility to confront that with all the critical tools that we have. And what has made this dialogue so important is that it has shown us what critical honesty looks like in practice. And for that, we are deeply grateful. As a student community, we stand today and forever with the Palestinian people and offer our solidarity in protest against Israel's brutal murder and genocide of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We remind you all of UWC's struggle history and urge you to continue the legacy. An institution that has and always will stand against apartheid, against settler colonialism, against partition, occupation, and genocide. For none of us are free until all of us are free. So here's to a decolonized education system, a free education system, and an inclusive education system.
Let's stop the genocide.
Stop the hate.
Let's end the bloodshed.
Long live the Intifada.
Long live the resistance.
Long live Sudan, Congo, Palestine. And end to all genocides.
So, on behalf of the SRC and the 26 plus minus registrar, you need to give me the new stats, please. About 7,000 students we lead, and the Palestinian Solidarity Association. We want to extend our deepest gratitude to each and every one of you that has made this conversation possible, and importantly to our university leadership for holding the space, and to Ms. Francesca Albanese for her moral clarity and her intellectual integrity.
From the river to the sea,
Palestine
will be free. Thank you, comrades. Pambili, a luta continua. Amandla! Away!
Thank you so much.
So before we close this remarkable afternoon, if you're wondering what this is about, I have the very special honor of presenting the Archbishop's Award for Peace with Justice on behalf of the Most Reverend Dr. Thabo Makgoba, Archbishop of Cape Town and Chancellor of the University of the Western Cape. When I invited Archbishop Makgoba to join us for this event, he said how deeply sorry he was that he couldn't be with us today. He is, as some of you might know, currently at the Vatican. He also told me that he was especially saddened because he had hoped to personally present Ms. Francesca Albanese with the Archbishop's Award for Peace with Justice, an award that recognizes courageous leadership in the struggle for justice and the defense of human dignity. As Chancellor of UWC, Archbishop Makgoba felt it would be most fitting for this award to be presented here at this university, which is shaped by the legacies of both Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu. Among previous recipients of this award are Archbishop Desmond Tutu himself and Mrs. Leah Tutu, Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke, and former Public Protector Advocate Thuli Madonsela. And so today it is my absolute joy and privilege to add Francesca Albanese to that distinguished company. Before I read the full citation, I just want to introduce Reverend Wilma Jacobson, who is representing Archbishop Makgoba today, and Reverend Rene August, who's also here to present the award. Both Wilma Jacobson is one of the first women to have been ordained as a priest in 1992 in South Africa, when women were allowed to be ordained, and and Reverend Rene August is also an Anglican priest and works for the global organization called Tear Fund. And I must say that the Archbishop said to me the other day, well, he lamented when he asked if we could do this award, that most of the past recipients of this award have been men, unfortunately. But here he is today handing over to us to confer this award on another woman, 3 women to do this. So Francesca, you noted the other day the predominance of the men in the church. Well, there's some hope, I think. So now to the official citation accompanying the award, and I'm going to read the official citation, which is on the award here. Before I begin, you'll notice that it begins with "We Thabo Cecil Makgoba." So anyone who has a problem with pronouns, check out this old English here. We Thabo Cecil Makgoba, by divine providence, Archbishop and Metropolitan of the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, hereby make known that on Wednesday, the 29th of October, in the year of our Lord 2025, we have admitted as the recipient of the Archbishop's Peace with Justice Award, Francesca Albanese. The award was established by the Synod of Bishops based on the words of the prophet Micah. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? Trained in international law and shaped by a deep ethical conviction, Ms. Albanese's life and work bear witness to the global pursuit of justice rooted in moral clarity. Before the world's highest courts, she has consistently held power to account and reasserted the place of law, not as an instrument of oppression, but as a discipline of conscience. Her work stands as a testament to the prophetic vocation of the law and to her lifelong commitment to the sanctity of life, to truth-telling, and to the courage of moral responsibility. In the words of the prophet Micah, she has done justice, loved kindness, and walked humbly with her God. We are pleased to recognize her work by conferring upon her the Archbishop's Award for Peace with Justice, given under our hand and seal this 29th day of October in the year of our Lord 2025, in the 24th year of our consecration and of our translation, the 18th. Thabo Cecil Makhoba, Archbishop of Cape Town. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Okay, so does someone want to take that for you? Okay, so Francesca, we've come to the end of our proceedings, but it wouldn't be complete without a few tokens of appreciation. I know you've been complaining about how you're going to carry all the luggage. We will make a plan. So I just want to, we've got a few gifts for you, and it's in a gift bag, and I can't tell you about all the gifts, but I'm just going to tell you about some of them because some of them are special. So from the Rector's office, we have a book titled, there we go, Becoming UWC, Reflections, Pathways, and Unmaking Apartheid's Legacy, edited by Pramesh Lalu, who's here with us, and Nolene Murray. It's a critical reflection on UWC's journey about how a university born under apartheid became a site of intellectual defiance and transformation, constantly unmaking the very legacies that created it. And then from the International Relations Office, we have a children's coloring book called From the River to the Sea, written by Nati Ngumbani and published by Social Bandit Media. And Francesca, you'll be interested to note that this was controversially pulled off some shelves in our bookstores because apparently a children's coloring book can be quite dangerous when it tells the truth. So that's a gift from the International Relations Office. And then from the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice, we have a Womandla hoodie for you. The Womandla is a South African wordplay on Amandla, which means power. And during the anti-apartheid struggle, people would shout, let's show Francesca. Who wants to do it? And Africa. Maibuye. And so people would say Amandla, and we would say Awetu, which is power to the people. It was a declaration of defiance. At the Tutu Center, we've reimagined that cry through a feminist lens. And so we say Womandla. So can we say Womandla? Great. We hope it'll become part of your weekend wear, and send us a picture when you do wear it. And there's a whole lot of other goodies in the bag. Oh yes, and we have a poster that's going to go into the bag, and this is by the Palestinian Solidarity Coalition. They've documented the universities that have taken a principled stance against apartheid Israel, and so that's the list of the universities that have done so. And so now, and as I said, there's many other goodies in your goodie bag, but I would like to call upon Professor Robert Balfour to present you with these. And I do have one more gift, and this is a shameless promotion of my book. But it's called Gender Genocide Gaza, and I know you'd be interested in this, so I thank you personally for your feminist solidarity, Francesca.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I know we are running past time, and I really don't want you to miss your flight. I mean, I do, but I don't. I do, but I have to say that I don't. I know there was a desire to have a group photo. I don't know if we are able to do that still. Okay, so we will do that. Someone will lead us.
It's going to, everyone should be moving to the left. And so we will go out and move to the left, and that's where the group photo will be.
Great. And then there are refreshments out there by Cape Palestine.